It's a beautiful day in the neighborhood, a beautiful day for a neighbor. Would you be mine? Could you be mine? I have always wanted to have a neighbor just like you. I've always wanted to live in a neighborhood with you. So let's make the most of this beautiful day. Since we're together, might as well say, would you be mine? Would you be mine? Won't you be my neighbor? Let me stop. Hey, everybody. Welcome. Come on in. Sit down. Hi. Happy Sunday. Welcome to the Jaybe show on Revolutionary Blackout Network. So good to see all of you here today. One and all accounted for. Today is July 16th, 2023. I am your host, James Fauntleroy. So good to see all of you once again. The Jaybe font. I'm sorry. I'm getting my channels mixed up. I am always live with you guys on Sundays, Tuesdays, and Thursdays. So if you guys would like to, you guys can see me here. You guys can also see me on Tuesdays at 2 on my own channel. Just let you guys know, a Revolutionary Blackout Network also has a Substack. So if you guys would like to, you guys can go to revolutionaryblackout.substack.com so you guys can get those email notifications. And yes, they are more reliable than on YouTube. So please make sure to do that if you would like to get email notifications. Also, thank you so much to the patrons on Patreon as well as members. Without you guys, we would not be able to do this type of work. So thank you so very much to all of you, as well as a big shout out and thank you to anybody who has ever given to our fundraiser for our graphics designer, Aaron, as well as if you like to give any type of contribution to raise money for labor and bills for our graphics designer, Aaron. She does graphics design as well as doing our clips. If you would like to, you guys can go to Venmo at Revolutionary Blackout, or you can go to Cash App $ Mutual Aid Forever. Thank you so very much to Erin for all the work that she does. And yeah, she does an amazing job. So as usual, whenever I have a stream, I like to go into the chat and I like to say hello to everybody. So it's good to see all of you here today. Let's get into it, shall we? We have Juan Alba saying, good afternoon, everyone. Good to see you, Juan. All right, nice to have you. The Jam Mom coming in, giving peace. Thank you so very much, Jam Mom. Saul coming in saying, hey, you guys. Oh, guys, I'm so silly. Good to see you, Saul. Wadi coming in saying, hey, everybody. Good to see you. Ibrahim says, welcome, comrades. Good to see you. Welcome, Ibrahim. All right, we have Just Me saying, hey, JB, looking handsome as always. Thank you. That is very kind of you. I appreciate that. That actually lifts my spirits. All right, we have Alex coming in. Hello, Alex. Welcome to you as well. We have the Confederate Christians saying Trump has did many amazing things to help the colored. We need Trump back now. Oh gosh, to help the colored. Ooh, to help the colored. Yeah, when he helped the colored, by trying to get the death penalty for 5 innocent teens in New York. Oh wow. Help the colored. Yeah. Yeah. Or when, he decided to not allow Black people to rent in the apartments that him and his father had, in their real estate ventures. Help the coloreds, Look, I'm gonna tell you like this. Welcome to Revolutionary Blackout. Biden and Trump are basically the same, except for Trump is just orange. They're not that much different. Welcome. And guess what? The hell with Biden, the hell with Trump, the hell with Obama, the hell with Bush, the hell with Clinton, the hell with all of them. Welcome. Oh, goodness. It's funny because anyway. Roger Meadows comes in saying, should I get the barbecue chicken and ribs, steak, or pork chops, Jaybe? Help me decide. Oh, gosh. Damn. Man, I'm a rib guy, man. I'm a rib dude. Especially when they're tender and you can just pull them apart. Smoke ribs, too. Do you have a smoker? If you have a smoker, smoke them ribs. And then get them now. Start smoking them at like 1:32 p.m. Just listen to me while you're smoking them. And then by the time it's 6, maybe 7 o'clock, smoke them for about 2-3 hours and then put them in the grill. Do that. And eat a piece from me. All right. Mastermind Hour coming in saying, hello, fam. Good to see you. All right. We have John coming in saying, happy Sunday all. Firing up the grill. Fire it up, baby. Smoke Guitar says, smoke a prime rib. Ooh, I've never had prime rib. Yeah, I'm that broke. I've never had prime rib. But it's okay. Hopefully one day I will. Let me see. Oh. Then we have Peter saying, make sure you use applewood on that smoker. Applewood is also really good. I heard cherry wood is good too. I've never had that before though. Peter, have you ever had cherry wood? Let a brother know. We have Camp coming in saying 3, 2, 1 rib method. Yum, yum. Mm-hmm. Right, says I ain't trying to cook shit. I'm trying to order for my favorite barbecue. Then get the ribs, man. If they're good, then get them. I've had bad ribs before. We went to the soul food restaurant, and the ribs just weren't hitting it. And that was sad. In the hood, and the ribs weren't hitting. Oh no, that wasn't there. Was it there? No, there was this guy. It was in a more affluent shopping area. And this dude, I guess, called himself putting ribs out in the grill. Ribs were tough. And I'm like, I went to all my fellow workmates. When I brought them ribs over, I was like, do not go to that dude. He does not know how to make no ribs. Bernard says, I will cook you a mean prime rib when I come to Florida. Nice. Thank you so very much. All right. So, give me 1 second. Apologies, guys. I am actually still sick, so if you guys see me coughing a little bit, that's why. But so let's get into the stories for today. These are ones that I actually came across my view a few days ago, and I was just like, what? So let's take a look, see, shall we? Lead poisoning via cables? We're going to be talking about that. And then we also have housing boom and bust. And that'll be my other story that I'll be covering today. These stories really have to do with just those of us who are just the average working and working poor people in the United States. And we're really going through it. They're really putting us through the ringer, both health wise and housing wise. So let's get into this as well. So I came across this story last week and I said, yo, I got to talk about this on RBN. And so let me show you guys. This is out of the Wall Street Journal. I know we don't really pay that much attention to this, but this is deeply important. Out of the Wall Street Journal, it says America is wrapped in miles of toxic lead cables. Let me see, can I enlarge this just a little bit and then move that over? Let's do it one more time. One more time, baby. Let's do it one more time. We want this to be as big as, whoop, nope, that's not what we wanted. We want it to just, there we go. And let's just go back up. All right. So as America is wrapped in miles of toxic lead cables, says telecom companies laid them decades ago and thousands were left behind, posing a hidden health hazard today. So this is an investigation by the Wall Street Journal. This came out last week. Okay. AT&T, Verizon, and other telecom giants have left behind a sprawling network of cables covered in toxic lead that stretches across the United States under the water, in the soil, and on poles overhead. As the lead degrades, it is ending up in places where Americans live, work, and play. It says the lead can be found in the banks of the Mississippi River in Louisiana, the Detroit River in Michigan, shout out to Rome, he's in Detroit, the Willamette River in Oregon, and the Passaic River in New Jersey, according to Journal's test of samples of nearly 130 underwater cable sites conducted by several independent laboratories. The metal has tainted the soil at a popular fishing spot in New Iberia, Louisiana, at a playground in Wappingers, sorry, Wappingers Falls, New York, and in front of a school in suburban New Jersey. These words, I'm terrible with them. The U.S. has spent decades eradicating well-known sources such as paint, gasoline, and pipes. So, we have lead paint, lead gasoline, lead pipes, unless you're in places like Flint, Michigan. The journal's investigation reveals a hidden source of contamination, more than 2,000 lead-covered cables that hasn't been addressed by the companies or environmental regulators. These relics of the old Bell system, remember Bell South, Bell Atlantic, so Bell system, regional telephone network, and their impact on the environment haven't been previously reported. Lead levels in sediment and soil at more than 4 dozen locations tested by Journal exceeded safety recommendations set by the United States. The EPA at recommendations by the U.S. EPA. At the New Iberia fishing spot, lead leaching into the sediment near cable in June of 2022 measured 14.5 times the EPA threshold for areas where children play. Quote, "We have been fishing here since we were kids," said Taryn Jones, who grew up a few blocks away. For many years, telecom companies have known about the lead-covered cables and the potential risks of exposure to their workers. Of course. According to documents and interviews with former employees, they were also aware that lead was potentially leaching into the environment, but haven't meaningfully acted on potential health risks to the surrounding communities or made efforts to monitor the cables. This says cable locations. It says cable locations in Pennsylvania, underwater and aerial cables and where the schools are. So you see all these little dots, all these little dots are schools. And then the light blue dots are aerial cable and underwater cable. Look at that. Crazy. Lead in a coal center, Pennsylvania sediment cable was 7 point times the EPA recommended threshold for children's play areas. So that little light colored white box is the EPA guideline. All the tan colored boxes are what's actually in it. So the EPA guideline is just one box, and this is how much is in it: 7.5 times. Now, it says doctors say that no amount of contact with lead is safe. I'm going to repeat this line. It says doctors say no amount of contact with lead is safe, whether ingested or inhaled, particularly for children's physical and mental development. So I'm going to be showing a video about the effects of lead in humans, particularly children. It says even without further exposure, lead can stay in the blood for about 2 or 3 months and can be stored in bones and organs longer. Risks include behavior and learning problems and damage to the central nervous system in children, as well as kidney, heart, reproductive problems in adults, according to U.S. health agencies. So this is how bad lead in our soil and in our water has the potential to do these damaging things to us when ingested. Now, this is what AT&T, Verizon, and other telecom companies say. It says in response to the journal's reporting, AT&T and Verizon and other telecom companies that succeeded Ma Bell said that they don't believe cables in their ownership are a public health hazard or a major contributor to environmental lead, considering the existence of other sources of lead close to people's homes. They said they follow regulatory safety guidelines for workers dealing with lead. My opinion, bullshit. Bullshit. They actually knew about it, but they're saying this to save their ass, saying, we don't believe there's any risk. Well, yeah, of course they're going to say that because they're trying to cover their ass. And the thing is that that's what these corporations do. Because ultimately, it will cost money to replace these cables, which is something that they don't want to do. Capitalism is a system where the owners of the means of production will try to not spend any money at all and try to make as much profit as possible. So what will happen? This will cut into the profits by replacing these cables with something that's more environmentally safe. And so they don't want to do that. So they'd rather risk your health, your well-being of you and your children in order to keep the money in their pockets. In fact, this reminds me. This is a result of the Telecommunications Act of 1996. And let's see what that is. Because a lot of people don't realize that this deregulation screwed us over. So it says Telecommunications Act led to media mergers. Another consequence of the Telecommunications Act was a flurry of media mergers. The act significantly reduced regulations on media concentration across cross-ownership media outlets. This deregulation led to less competition and allowed companies such as AOL, Time Warner, and Viacom to purchase multiple media outlets in local markets. This also has an effect on on telecommunications with like AT&T and Verizon. So what happens is they now don't have as much regulation on them, so they're able to not be as safe when it comes to how they operate. And so instead of having what I would prefer, a community owned or federally owned telecommunications apparatus, because the real problem is that they will do anything to keep profit coming to them. It's profit first, people next to never, for the most part. And some people will go, well, JB, you actually want the government to be over your telecommunications. The thing is that if the government was actually ran by us instead of corporations, then yes. The problem is that the government is ran by corporations. When you have a government that's run by the people, by the workers, then that's different. See, when people complain about the government, people complain about the government as it exists now, instead of what we want it to exist as. You see, your problems with the government is primarily because they obey the corporate dictators. That's why you have an issue with government. Government is like a tool. It's like government is like a knife. Depending on who you give that knife to, it could either be something bad for you, or it could be something useful for you. So let's say government is a knife. If I give that knife to a serial killer, guess what? But if I give that knife to a chef, oh, guess what? Oh, it's mealtime, right? So it depends on who what the tool. A tool can be a weapon depending on the hands of the person that is in. Government in the hands of corporations means that they are destroying us all for the sake of profit. Government in the hands of the workers means that we're going to make sure it benefits us, which means everybody benefits. So this is why when I say nationalization of our telecommunications, nationalization of our government, because our government is not even nationalized anymore, it's privatized, but nationalization of our healthcare industry, nationalization of our utilities, nationalization of our telecommunications. That's what I mean with it being ran by us, not corporations. That's what I mean. And when people talk, especially when socialists and communists talking about government control, it means government control by means of a dictatorship of the proletariat or workers. That's what it means. That means some suit that live in Calabasas, or a suit that lives or vacations out there in the Hamptons, will not have more power than you. In fact, they're going to have one vote just like you and I do. They're not going to be able to influence our government through money. That's what we mean. So just in case anybody's watching, they go, oh my God, government control. The thing is that government in itself isn't bad. It's who controls the government. That's what matters. So let's continue. Before I move on. As companies and an industry group representing them said they would work together to address any concerns related to lead sheath cables. Quote, the U.S. telecommunications industry stands ready to engage constructively on this issue. So this is from a spokeswoman from U.S. Telecom, a broadband association that represents companies in the industry. So, of course, I'm going to say the health and safety of the well-being of our people, our customers, and our communities is paramount of importance. That's what AT&T said, which is complete and utter bullshit because they have a fiduciary responsibility to their shareholders. So that's who's going to come first. They actually will put their shareholders first instead of the people who are stakeholders within the areas. Verizon said something a little bit better, but it's whatever. It says a lead cover cable network includes more than 1,750 underwater cables. According to public records collected by the journal, a journal analysis of 5 most densely populated states and more than a dozen of the most densely populated counties in the nation identified about 250 aerial cables alongside streets and fields next to schools and bus stops, some drooping under the weight. There are likely far more throughout the country. Just to let you guys know, somebody may be asking, well, why is an aerial cable up in the air any type of danger to any of us? Because, I mean, if it's in the soil, I can see how that's bad. If it's in the water, I definitely can see how that's bad. But why an aerial cable? How can that be bad? Guess what? Precipitation, rain, snow, sleet. So it can get on there and then fall and then saturate the ground. Or it can saturate on those lines and then fall on top of us or fall on top of things we may have. And we may pick that up by touching it. And so therefore, this is one of the reasons why it is important that we get rid of these lead cable lines also that are in the air as well, because they are subject to the elements. This is why it's also bad to have these things there as well. So these corporations, they had it and they aren't bothering to change it. So let's see how extensively bad this really is across the country. Says the journal reporters visited about 300 cable sites around the U.S. and collected roughly 200 environmental samples at nearly 130 of those sites. The samples were analyzed for lead content by Pace Analytical Services, an accredited environmental testing lab. A researcher at the University of Washington who analyzed the chemical fingerprint of lead at some of those sites verified that the lead contaminating the water and soil likely originated from the cable. As among the findings, roughly 330 of the total number of underwater locations identified by the journal are in a source water protection area designated by the federal regulators as contributing to the drinking water supply, according to an EPA review performed for the journal. Aerial lead cable runs alongside more than 1,000 schools with about 48,000 students in total. More than 1,000 schools and child care centers sit within half a mile of an underwater lead cable, according to a journal analysis using data from research firm MCH Strategic Data. Just to let you guys think about this, how many of us get our drinking water from these water sources? And then how many kids are drinking from water fountains or washing their hands in this water? And then let's say you wash your hands in this water. It is not missed upon any of us that a child between the ages of 4 to 8 or 9 are going to put their hands in their mouths at least a few times a day. And if they think, oh, my hands are clean because I wash my hands in water, right? Or we still have water fountains in schools, albeit a lot of these water fountains aren't as trusted anymore. So I don't know how many kids are drinking from water fountains. But guess what? I drank out of a hell of a lot of water fountains when I was in school. And these lines have existed for decades, even when I was in school. And so could it be that I have lead in my system from drinking the water at home from the tap, as well as from these water fountains in my school, as well as washing my hands in this water from the tap? What about the showers that we take? How many of us have taken showers and the lead from in the water pours on top of us and absorbs into our skin? We got to talk about these things. And this is why these corporations are dangerous to our health. They're dangerous for you. They're dangerous for me. This is why workers need to own the means of production, not these corporations, not these people at the top. Because we will look out for ourselves before we ever look for profits. Whereas these guys have a fiduciary responsibility to gain profits for their shareholders and for themselves first. This is why this is so important. Because their priority is money. Our priority is us. Our priority is the health and safety of us as well as all of our neighbors around us. So this is why people like us at RBN, we are anti-capitalist. Because we care about our environment and those of us humans and all other sentient beings on this planet. They do not. They don't care about you. So when we talk about things like revolution, it really means it is a self-defense and self-preservation act in order to make sure that we don't die. That's what it is. And the only reason why revolutions become violent is because the state, the corporations and the wealthy use the state in order to combat us from actually changing the system to be more favorable to all rather than just a few. That's how it is. They always throw the first punch. Always. Go to any protest, especially back in 2020 during the George Floyd protests. Who was the one who got violent first? And who stayed violent? I got time. Go ahead. Holla at me. Because that's what it is. They will say, oh my God, they're violent. When in reality, the ones with the badges and guns are the ones that are being violent. Look what happened in Cop City. They literally riddled Tortuguita with bullets for just sitting, crisscross applesauce with their hands up. And then what? They got riddled with bullets just for protesting a building of a militarized cop training facility? I went off on a tangent, but rest assured that what they're doing, this is violence. I don't care what nobody says. This is violence. Let's continue. In my home state, in New Jersey alone, more than 350 bus stops are next to or beneath aerial lead covered cables. A journal analysis of New Jersey transit data found. By the way, let me ask y'all a question. What class of people uses public transportation most? Let's continue. Roughly 80% of sediment samples taken to underwater cables. Roughly 80% of sediment samples taken next to underwater cables which the journal tested, showed elevated levels of lead. It isn't known if the level is leaching is consistent. Experts say old cables tend to degrade over time. I'm sorry, it's constant. Ben Grubbles, the executive director of an association of state environmental regulators, called the journal's findings disturbing. This is the type of toxic exposure that isn't on the national radar. It needs to be. There is a need to act and clean it up. I'm not going to want to though. Since American Telephone and Telegraph, aka AT&T, laid nearly all the cables in question between the late 1800s and the 1960s as it built out telephone service across the US. Excuse me. The cables, often contaminating hundreds of bundled copper wires, had a thick jacket of lead for insulation, to prevent corrosion and to keep out water. For underwater cables, steel cords sometimes surround the lead for further protection. When technology advanced and companies turned to plastic sheathing and later fiber optics, they often left the old lines in place because it'd be more expensive to take them out. With the breakup of the Bell Systems monopoly in 1984, regional phone companies became independent competitors that consolidated over time, formed the backbone of modern carriers AT&T and Verizon. Tracking the current owners of old cables isn't a simple task after decades of deals, and companies themselves, in many instances, denied their ownership. The journal provides lists of cable locations to major telecom providers, which decline to detail cable locations. So they're not even letting us know the exact location of the cables, even though they either own them or previously owned them. Let's continue. Let's go. So this is just to let me show you guys this first. Um, just in case you guys are in any areas that may come across this, this is just for precautions. It says lead legacy. What can you do? Lead sheath cables are typically whitish gray. Don't touch them. The most likely source of exposure is through ingesting contaminated water or soil. If you suspect that you've been exposed, ask your doctor to test your blood. The CDC offers guidance on health effects, prevention, and testing. If you suspect a cable in your neighborhood is lead, contact your local phone company or your health department. You can also talk to the journal, which will continue to report on the topic. So make sure if you see them, stay away. Do not even touch them. So be careful out there, and talk to your kids. Talk to kids. Let them know. All right. So this is a long article. So the known risks. Says AT&T has previously noted the risks from its cables. Underground cable presents real possibilities for overexposure for workers removing them. AT&T said that in a 2010 presentation about employee safety at an industry conference, some older metropolitan areas may still have over 50% lead cable. That's from AT&T themselves. So here's the thing. They know this. That's what's the most egregious thing about it. They know this, and yet they won't do anything about it because they don't want to spend the money to do it. And it's not like you can say, oh, yeah, you know what? I'm just going to boycott AT&T, because how many other phone companies are there out there for you to use? Because we really live in, oligopoly, where it's only just a small few companies. And so you have to go to one of them in order to use them. Like in my area, I only can use internet from two sources. I can either go through AT&T or Spectrum. I don't have another choice. We don't have choices. And so we don't really have choice. What's the point of having it owned by a corporation? You might as well just nationalize the shit. Just nationalize it. And instead of it making profit, the only money you need to pay, it just goes towards maintenance, operational costs, and maybe some money that's saved for emergencies. And that's it. And if everybody's paying into it, then it's not really going to cost that much. Which means that our internet could be fast and cheap and great quality. But no, we can't. Because the job creators, because they make money, they need to create jobs. When in reality, we, the consumers, we, the workers, create the jobs. We, the workers, create the wealth. AT&T gross profit for the quarter ending March 21st was $17.8 billion, a 4.89% increase year over year. Just in the last quarter, they made over $17 billion. $17 billion in a quarter. And you don't think they don't have enough money to safely remove these lead cables out of the water, the soil, and out of the air? They got it. They just don't want to do it because of their greed. Let's continue. So it says the lead in Lake Tahoe water sample was 2,533 times the EPA limit for drinking water. That one square is the EPA guideline. This is how much lead that was in the water in Lake Tahoe. That's how much lead was in the water, and they don't want to extract it safely to save lives. They don't care about us. Look at this. This is how much lead is in that water. And you think they actually care about us? Do you really think that these job creators actually care about us? All of that. And remember, this is what it does to people. Remember what it does to people. Parts of Lake Tahoe are used for drinking water. Some of us are too poor to get filters. Some of us may at times are too poor to get a refrigerator that has a water filtration system or has a home filtration system. Hell, some of us can't afford a Brita water filter to use in our own homes because we're just that broke. And then on top of it, even if we do buy water filters to drink, we're still taking showers in this water. We're still putting our little kids in the bathtubs with this water. It is so costly to be poor. Because somebody rich, they can have a complete water filtration system for their entire house and not ever have to worry about this at all. But those of us that are poor, we get this lead, we ingest it through our drinking water, through our cooking, white. We're also bathing in this water. We're washing our hair, we're brushing our teeth. And then guess what happens? We end up with health issues. And these health issues that we end up with even cost us even more. It is more expensive to be poor in this country than it is to be rich. You pay a tax just for being poor. And this is why. Because they want to keep more money in their pockets. Though any potential risk would be for swimmers ingesting the water near the cables. Compared with the EPA's guideline for water out the tap, the March tests in Emerald Bay were 367 times and 2,533 times the threshold, respectively. As AT&T hired environmental consulting firm Haley & Aldrich during the litigation to take samples in March 2021 at 5 locations in Lake Tahoe, 2 of them close to the cables. The test found quote-unquote very low levels of lead in the water, according to the report provided by AT&T to the Journal. The lake's water quality is not adversely impacted by the cables, the study said, adding that the cables were largely non-detect for lead, including those collected nearest the subject cables. So basically, AT&T hired their own and said, "Oh yeah, this not that." And of course they would do that, and of course they would do that to fudge the numbers, so that allegedly they would fudge the numbers, so that they wouldn't be able to, so they wouldn't be held liable. I smell a class action lawsuit. This is wild. In West Orange, New Jersey, a lead sheath cables sags over tree-lined sidewalks and driveways for more than 1/3 of a mile, where children and their parents walk across the street from Gregory Elementary School. The cable sometimes dips about 12 feet above ground. Here it is in Mississippi. Says lead and sediment was 19.8 times the EPA guide for where children can congregate. So it's near children's playgrounds. So this is what's going on in our country. They go over, this article actually goes over how they do the testing for lead. So this is actually pretty detailed. And so, and this isn't limited to just red states or blue states. This isn't just limited to, the Midwest or the coastal states. This is all over the country. So this is what's happening. And I want to share the physical effects of this. So I'm going to share this video really quick. Because this is also very important. Hold on. All right. Okay. So this is going to be more detailed about the toxicity so that people know what's what.
This lesson is on lead poisoning. So in this lesson, we're going to talk about where we might be exposed to lead. We're also going to talk about how lead causes toxicity. And then we're going to get into the signs and symptoms, how it's diagnosed, and how it's treated. So lead poisoning is also known as lead toxicity. It is a condition caused by increased concentrations of lead in the blood. Now, lead itself is a heavy metal. It's found in the environment. It's an environmental toxin, but it has no physiological function. However, when exposed to it, it can cause both reversible and irreversible health effects depending on what stage of life you are in when you are exposed to lead and how long you are exposed to lead. We're going to talk a bit more about that in detail later on in this lesson. Now, it's important to note that no level of lead exposure is safe. Children are going to be most commonly affected, and adult males are more frequently affected than females. And we're going to talk a bit more about why that is in the next slide. So lead poisoning or lead toxicity can be broken down into acute and chronic forms. So acute lead poisoning is going to be most commonly caused by occupational exposure. So this is the reason why adult males are going to be more likely to be affected than adult females. Some occupations that increase the risk for exposure include any occupation or any job that exposes the individual to lead. These are going to include battery manufacturing and recycling, lead mining and refining, auto repair, and certain types of construction.
Thinking about all those people, especially predominantly a lot of men that were working and installing those lines back then. Those telecommunication lines that were installed for us to be able to communicate with one another. Thinking, how many of those people got lead poisoning? And when that lead has been there, how long has that lead been in there? The entire time. Just think about that. Think about your grandfathers, your great-grandfathers that were probably working and installing those lines. And then they had health issues. And it actually contributed. It was contributed because of lead. Let's continue.
Now, there are other jobs or other occupations that can also increase your risk for being exposed to lead. If you want more information, please look up a list of those occupations. With regards to chronic forms, this is going to most commonly affect children. It's going to be insidious. It's going to be a slow exposure over time. And this is most commonly going to be from environmental sources. These are going to include leaded paint. So leaded paint has been phased out in much of the developed world. So this is going to be most important when being exposed to paint in houses built before 1978. And
remember when people used to make the joke of somebody that you used to eat paint chips as a child. That's what they mean, right? Especially somebody that is perceived as quote unquote slow or, unintelligent. Somebody would be like, oh, you ate paint chips as a kid, didn't you? This is what they mean, because lead was in paint. And now we know that lead contributes to developmental disabilities within children, developmental disadvantages in children because of the ingesting of lead. And so that's what it means. So that's what that whole joke comes from, just to let everybody know.
The paint itself is going to be more problematic in those older houses when that paint is peeling or chipping.
By the way, I have a sibling that was born before 1978. So it's not that long ago. I have a sibling, and many people's parents were born before 1978. So guess what? How many people's parents actually have a developmental disability that are adults now, but ate, or ingested, paint? And sometimes it's not they're purposefully picking up a piece and then putting it in their mouth. There may be somebody that's like 1 or 2 years old, and they may see it on the windowsill or something like that, and the parents not watching, and it may be, and broken up really fine, and then they put their hand on there and they put their hand in their mouth, and then they just ingested lead, and the parents have no idea. How many times has that ever happened? How many of that paint, went into a fine powder, and maybe, just maybe, it got into the air and you inhaled it, or your child inhaled it. So these people that were, living in homes that were built before 1978, a lot of homes. Remember after the New Deal? Remember in the 1950s and 60s where you had this mass migration into the suburbs? Remember that? Think about it. Let's go.
And if there are very small children in those environments and they were to actually ingest that chipped paint, this is a possible way that they can be exposed to leaded paint. Another older source of lead comes from leaded gasoline. Gasoline used to have lead in it starting in the 1920s, and this has also been phased out as well. But during the time when there was lead in gasoline, the lead from the gasoline used to be sent out through the exhaust into the environment, into the air, and has essentially contaminated a lot of environments and some of the soil as well. So there can still be lead in certain areas from this leaded gasoline. And then
think about all those times back in the day where you'd be sitting in the car with the window open, and you smell maybe the fumes from the exhaust from the cars around you, and it was still lead in the gasoline. Imagine how many millions of people breathed in lead and it got into our systems. Imagine how many kids were riding on a school bus. By the way, just to anybody who's young, we didn't have air conditioning on school buses. So what did we do? We all had to put the windows down. We had to click, drop the window. Guess what? When we're riding to school or riding home from school, if before gas was unleaded, guess what? You were also breathing in those fumes to school and from school. And if you had developmental disabilities that were made from it, it was because you were ingesting the thing that was actually sabotaging you in your education. Boy, I tell you, this system.
Certain old toys, if children are playing with old toys, especially those that are painted with old paint that has lead in it, this is another source of exposure as well. So how does lead...
So let's move on to this part. So this is actually going to be interesting too.
The inhibition of glutathione. So glutathione is important in acting to neutralize reactive oxygen species. So lead will actually inhibit the process of glutathione usage, and it also inhibits the enzyme superoxide dismutase. Both of these effects lead to increased levels of reactive oxygen species, or ROS. Oxygen species then can lead to cell membrane damage. So all of these effects lead to a variety of signs and symptoms. So some of these are going to include hematological findings, gastrointestinal findings, neurological findings, and renal findings or effects on the kidney. So we're going to talk about all of these in the next upcoming slides. Let's first talk about hematological effects. So the hematological effect that's going to occur from lead poisoning is anemia. A microcytic anemia, meaning that the MCV, or the mean corpuscular volume, is less than 80. This essentially means that the average size of a red blood cell is small. So it's a microcytic anemia, or in dizziness as well. Now there are
So it says signs and symptoms of anemia are fatigue, shortness of breath, or pallor. So pallor is basically means an unhealthy pale appearance. So people who turn pale, right? So let's go to the next one. Gastrointestinal.
nausea, vomiting, and diarrhea, and in some cases, constipation. The constipation is something that's going to be found in children. So abdominal.
If you've ever dealt with constipation in a child, you feel helpless. I mean, you really need to just it's tough because you have a child crying. And what about us? Have you ever been constipated? It is not fun. Goodness gracious.
Abdominal pain, nausea, vomiting, and diarrhea are more likely to be found in lead poisoning. And then there are particular neurological effects as well. These include irritability and being more aggressive than usual.
How many people are now just seem more irritable, more angry, more quick to anger, more snapping at you? Could it possibly be that the reason why we're also so angry is environmental factors, like how much lead is actually in our environment? Think about it. Think about why in the world we are also so quick to dismiss and get upset with other people, especially when it comes to wanting to change the system. Some people may believe that that they have the right answer, and then they completely just shut you off. Just think about it. Let's go.
Usual, decreased concentration, encephalopathy, so an altered mental status, so confusion. This is also termed lead encephalopathy, and rest drop can also.
So the part about encephalopathy, confusion, and think about how this affects us when it comes to regarding how we look at different groups, different disenfranchised groups, how we may start thinking about what some of these politicians tell us. They may say something like, oh, well, the people coming across the border are there to attack us, and we may be more susceptible to thinking less critically of what these politicians say. It's so many things that go into it. So many. Even how we process what people who are running our government tell us.
Occur. This is a neuropathy of the radial nerve. So this is radial neuropathy. So lead poisoning or lead toxicity can cause certain neuropathies, and one of them can lead to wrist drop. So the patient will not be able to raise their wrist. There are other neurological features I want to discuss here that occur in children. These include changes in activity level. So if there's a very young child that their activity levels begin to change, either an increase in their activity levels, hyperactivity, or a decrease in their activity levels, this can be a sign of lead poisoning. Behavioral changes in general. Developmental delay. This is going to be very important if there's some issue in development. So in very young children, following the developmental stages is going to be very important. And if there is developmental delay, along with some other findings we talked about before, this may be a sign of lead exposure or lead poisoning. And one other one as part of this is delayed language ability. So this is also going to play a role in this as well. And then school difficulties. If there are school difficulties, this can also tie in with the developmental delay.
So let's take a look at this for a second. Because a lot of us lately have been talking about hyperactivity and different disorders. Could it possibly be that a massive generation of people have ingested lead and have led to hyperactivity? And some of us, and for some of us, it could be a lessening of activity, meaning that we're more lethargic. We may have chronic fatigue, right? Which may lead us to be less active, gain a lot more weight, become obese, right? Could it possibly be that's what happens? Could it be in behavioral changes that this actually has an effect on how we deal with one another in this country? Mind you, a lot of us millennials are 40. We're 40. We're old enough to run the country. And then developmental delays. Doesn't that affect how we are able to comprehend different aspects, different concepts? How many people have we met, especially on Twitter, that seem to lack reading comprehension? And then school difficulties. How many kids who especially are in poor neighborhoods that have difficulties in school and that were looked at as problem children? We're looked at as we need a special education, when in reality, was it just our genes and was it just our development, or was it something that was in our environment that caused us to be that way? This is literally affecting our children. And yet, companies like AT&T and Verizon do not want to take these out. Now, they're going to say, well, it's a safety issue if we take them out. You know, we don't know what it's going to do. And here's the thing. I'd rather them being taken out, and it might pose a safety risk, than leaving it in. Because leaving it in is constantly feeding into the negative health effects of all of us. That's like asking whether a medical team should extract the knife from the stab area versus just leaving it in. Yeah, until you get to the hospital, you have to leave it in just so that you won't bleed out. But once you get to the medical team, they're going to take it out, and then they're going to fix the wounded area so that it minimizes the damage. They took it out. They put it in years ago. They can definitely take it out. because it's going to affect us worse the longer it stays. And it's already been there for decades. So the question is, how much of your schooling where you felt like you were inadequate as a student was due to you being poisoned with lead? How much of your relationships have been affected because of you just being more irritable or having developmental delays when really you thought it was just you, but really it was actually you were poisoned? Think about, like, this encompasses everything. And we think, oh, and maybe it's just us. When in reality, it's the corporations that don't give a shit about us. And they're allowing to have these chemicals in order for them to make as much profit. And then when we say, hey, you guys need to take this out, oh no, we don't need to take it out. It's not actually affecting you guys that bad. When in reality, it's been affecting us this entire time. Think about, look, when you look at all these different things that affect the kids, think about the boomers, think about Gen X, think about millennials, and now Gen Z. Think about all these people that were affected and probably have all these different symptoms. Think about the millions of us that had this affected to us. Think about it. Think about it. That's capitalism. It affects us even neurologically.
In summary, the neurological effects are oftentimes going to be separated by the central nervous system, which is going to be the brain and the spinal cord. This is going to be more likely to occur in children. So the central nervous system, brain and spinal cord, is more likely to be affected by lead exposure in children. So a lot of those irritability, changes in activity level, behavioral changes, and developmental delays, all going to be more found in children. Whereas the effects on the peripheral nervous system, like the wrist drop that we talked about before, that neuropathy, is more likely to occur in adults.
And just think about these this lead exposure and it being probably closer to those of us who are working or working poor. And then let's say hypothetically you did find out. Well, do you have the insurance to fix this? Do you have the health care to actually mitigate this damage to your child or to yourself? How much is it going to cost? What are the co-pays? Have you been paying your premiums? See how this goes?
And serum lead levels are associated with changes in levels of aggression and IQ. So where there have been findings of average serum lead levels in different societies, different...
It affects your IQ, your ability to retain information, to problem solve, critical thinking. Wow.
Communities in different areas. If there is high serum lead levels, this is associated with levels of aggression. So if there's on average higher serum lead levels, there's often going to be an associated increase in aggression levels. And there's going to be an inverse relationship with IQ. So as the average serum lead level increases, there's oftentimes going to be a decrease in IQ levels. So that's also interesting to make note of as well. Now, there are other...
So this is how it affects humans and what is seen in it. Let me put this link in the chat so you guys can have that. It's also in the description as well, so you guys can have that too. But this is why it's so important for us to really get to a point where we have to change this system, because it's literally costing us our health. Literally. And so many people are affected by this. So many of us. And that's what's important. Goodness gracious. All right, so let me go to the chat. I'm going to start off with Rockfin really quick. Let me make sure I have that. Okay. Pop out. Man, this thing's taking some time. I wasn't expecting to talk this long about this subject, but this is very important. And you guys have, if you guys have not, please make sure to share this stream. And the article, I put the article in the description, and if you guys would like to, you guys can get it. The article is also in an archive. It's archived, so you guys will have to hit the paywall. So that, I think that's important, so you guys won't have to worry about having to subscribe or pay for the Wall Street Journal. You guys actually have that in there. So actually, let me, I'll put it in the chat one more time, just so you guys can have it. And then let me go to this comments in the chat. So this is in the comments in the chat on Rumble, Rockfin, and YouTube. And be sure to share that and share it wide. Also, by the way, while we're talking about it, if you guys ever want to do mutual aid, water filters are also a form of mutual aid for your neighbors. So if you guys got any extra water filters, or you guys want to buy water filters for people, especially people who are poor and working poor, that's another option for mutual aid. All right, so let's go to the comments. Rockfin chat. All right. For some reason, it's bright white. I don't know why. It's okay. So thank you for the tip, Roger Meadows. Roger says, they said they're following all regulations. You mean the regulations where you brought the bar all the way down to the floor? Exactly, man. Then say, hey, we're following regulations. What do you want from us? You being a chef, I understand the knife reference, but a better analogy would have been the government is a hammer, where the problem is not the hammer, but who's wielding it. Are they using it to build or destroy? That's also a really good analogy, Roger. Really good analogy. Roger continues, he says, the problem when we demand rebuilding our infrastructure, they hear that as not nationalizing, but corporate government partnerships. I made it clear to Alfecca from the National Infrastructure Banking Coalition. By the way, I also had Alfecca Maturity on my channel when we talked about public banks. So if you guys want to hear from her, she's been on my channel. I need to have her back on, but that was a great conversation. But Alfecca from the National Infrastructure Banking Coalition, when speaking of partnering with private sector to prioritize partnering with co-ops, peep the pic I DM'd you of what Congress would look like if it were transparent. I think your audience would agree. Let me take a look at that. I see. All right, hold up. I see what you mean, Roger. If Congress was transparent, this is what it would look like. Yep. U.S. Congress, brought to you by Goldman Sachs, Chase, Monsanto, Raytheon, ExxonMobil, Comcast, Coke, and Blue Cross and Blue Shield, and Shell, and Chevron. And what is that? Brondo? I never heard of that one. But that's what government would look like if it was actually transparent. I think you all would agree. I definitely agree. It's not brought to you by the people. It's brought to you by corporations. AT&T, your world delivered. All right, so let's continue. Roger continues, says, never expect the predator to have empathy for its prey. Us is the prey, expecting this will cause you two to be eaten. Once you accept this fact, then you make moves to kill the predators, because deterring it is not an option. It'll eventually come back and kill your calves and cubs. It is not enough to regulate and trust bust. We must give them the corporate death penalty, revoke corporate charters, replaced with co-ops. This is a link by Brookings. Let me see here. That Roger shared. Says new evidence that lead exposure increases crime. Says they find that exposing populations to lead in their drinking water causes much higher homicide rates 20 years later relative to similar places where kids avoid such exposure. Crazy, man. This is wild. I'm sharing this in the chat so you guys can have this too. And then guess what? That's when they say, oh my God, we need more police. And then they increase police funding. When in reality, we're being poisoned. Mm-mm-mm. Thank you for that, Roger. That's a gem. So yeah, thank you so much for that, Roger. And then also, Roger Meadows also says, through co-op ownership, we can create our own jobs. Absolutely. In the Rumble side, we have Bobby Woe says, makes sense, and there's a lot more chemicals and poisons out there. Baltimore is a lead paint and lead pipe ground zero. Look at what's going on there. Thank you very much for that, Bobby, on Rumble. That's true. I can talk to Sabby about that. Joseph Bett says lead goes into your bones. Absolutely. Hasman Hotel says if you go fishing, those little weights are lead. I did not know that. Hasman also says if you're a soldier, you are exposed to lead. Anna Ringwald says corporations externalize as much cost for cleanup as they can. Pittsburgh Dude 87 says, JB, you should invite on Derek Bros to talk about fluoride in the water. He's done some great reporting on it. I've heard some things about fluoride in the water. I'm not sure how accurate it is, but that's also an interesting conversation to have. Joseph S. says, Europe has strict laws against lead. Of course they do. Creative Experiment says, most of our products are lead-free because of European Union laws. Hen's Teeth says, corporate Congress was brought up in the 1950s book, The Space Merchants, Kornbluth and Pohl. Dwayne Vogel says, more cops to police poison people. Yep, definitely. Wow. This is wild, man. Pittsburgh Dude, this is actually a really good point. All the areas affected by lead poisoning could qualify for Libby, Montana provision of the ACA to get universal health care. Yes, you're absolutely correct. In fact, it's Section 1881A of the Social Security Act, which allows the president under emergency powers to give Medicare to all the people in an affected emergency area. I would consider this an emergency nationwide. So not only did we have a nationwide pandemic that the president could have enacted really a Medicare for everyone, but also this story breaking here in the Wall Street Journal could also be a means to basically say that it is an emergency nationwide for everybody who has potential lead poisoning. So therefore, everyone should have health care, but they won't do it because that means that people will actually have their material needs met. And corporations don't want that. Tony Bananas says, I'm located by a military base in San Antonio, and there were reports of water being contaminated with waste of the aircrafts. Now everyone in the area has dementia and Alzheimer's. I'm sorry about that, Tony. And this is happening especially in places like Hawaii. College Skies Now says, when you live in the U.S., you're poisoned 100 different ways on a daily basis. How many people are talking about this? Like the stream, please, so that this can get pushed out into the algorithm. Share the stream with people so that more people will know about this. Because you have thousands upon thousands of people living in these affected areas that are being poisoned with lead on a daily basis. Thousands upon thousands of children. And remember, these children grow up to be adults. This is what's affecting us in this country. Joseph Best says, I read an article where an airplane had an oil leak in Los Angeles where it was landing and sprayed oil and chemicals all over kids playing outside. Heavy G says, President Roosevelt confiscated everyone's privately held gold in 1933, traded it with paper, and devalued it paper by 7% within 1 year. That was the New Deal. And I'm going to end with this one. Says Dwayne says something is fundamentally wrong with a society that will pay for cops to beat down poison people before giving them health care. Absolutely right. So let's move on to the next story. If you guys have not liked the stream, please make sure to like the stream. Also, if you guys would like to, you guys can also contribute to our graphics designer, Erin. She does our graphics as well as make clips for us. Thank you so much to Erin. You guys can go to Venmo at Revolutionary Blackout. You guys go to Cash App, $Mutual Aid Forever. Erin does great work. Thank you so very much for all the work that you do as well. Now, what are we talking about next? This is another story, and I have a few clips to share with you guys, but this is really my wheelhouse that I'm going to talk about. And so the next story is housing boom and bust. So an article I found recently, we just need to talk about it. So housing boom and bust. So I'm going to share with you guys a couple of videos because this needs to be talked about. And not a lot of people have talked about it as of yet, because this is basically a news story that has come out. But I first want to show a quick video on the housing. Why did you? I hate when that happens. That wasn't supposed to play. Okay. All right, it's paused. Jeez Louise. Okay. Let's share this. This is what I want to share. I have to keep this muted just in case. I want to mute this. Okay. And then, okay. All right. So let's share this. And I'll be talking as you guys are watching this. But I really want you guys to see this really quickly. This video is titled Affording Rent on Minimum Wage Now Impossible. So as you can see, it starts off close to each other. So the blue line is minimum wage. The yellow line is percentage of income. And then the rent is the red line. And so it starts off at 1967 and it goes from there. And as we look at this, when anybody says, oh, you just need to work harder, when I was young, I was able to, when they say that, stop them and show them this. Because this is what's going on now. And anybody that says, well, you guys just need to work harder or you just need to get another job. No, because this is what happens. And so this is the inequality that takes place. And people will sit there and swear up and down that you're just not working hard enough, when in reality, the system is rigged against you. The system is rigged against us. Hell, I'm going through this right now. So that's what's important to realize. So let me share this video. Not video, this article. Oops, sorry. So this is out of Vice News. It says U.S. building more apartments than it has in decades, but not for the poor. It says apartment construction has reached a 50-year high, but the amount of units affordable to the lowest income groups has decreased nationwide. The U.S. is building more apartments than it has in half a century, but the poorest people still can't afford them, of course. The amount of units affordable to the lowest income groups has decreased across the country, even as apartment construction has reached a 50-year high, and even as overall rent is slowing, according to a report from Harvard's Joint Center for Housing Studies. There are many reasons for this, the report's authors explain, but the main one is that new units being produced are on the higher end and not affordable to people with the lowest incomes. Coupled with rent increases in deteriorating buildings, it means that benefits of the housing boom have been uneven. According to the report, while multifamily rental construction is at a decades-long peak, the high asking rents of new units make them unaffordable for many households. According to Sophia Wedine, a research analyst at the Joint Center for Housing Studies, some of the problems laid out in the report can be remedied with subsidies like housing vouchers. Housing assistance is relatively effective and wonderful for the households who get it, and obviously there's not nearly enough funding. So the problem is, while I applaud wanting to make housing more affordable, when you say you want to make it more affordable, you still keep a paywall between a human being and housing. Let's just be real. And somebody will say, well, they should have to work in order to have housing. That's backwards. It's backwards. Because housing is a human right. If it's a right, then should it have a paywall? If you need it to live, should it have a paywall? If we all can pool our resources together so that everybody has it just by default, should it be paywall? Let's continue. Wadeen said the loss of low-income units was a geographically widespread problem. It is a little bit startling that the supply of low-rent units is falling everywhere. Even in places like Ohio and Michigan, Missouri, Indiana, low-cost states have previously had the largest shares of low-rent units. These states are losing low-rent units too. In theory, the increased supply of apartment units should slow rent growth. And the report shows that broadly this is happening. But the housing market, as reflected in the report, is more complicated than that. There are many housing markets depending on your income, geography, or due to both the wealth gap and a widespread illegal discrimination, race. And while these markets interact with each other, they can require different remedies to preserve affordability. But the data suggests that building high-end housing is not easing pressures on the lowest end of the housing market, as some advocates focus predominantly on supply-side housing solutions have hoped. It says the report says that adjusting for inflation, the number of units with rents below $600 fell from 11.9 million to 8 million between 2011 and 2021. There was also a loss of 1.5 million units with rents between $600 and $799, as well as a loss of 980,000 units renting between $800 and $1,000 in the same period. It says, but new housing is mostly on the higher end. Relying on census data, the researchers found that asking rent for new multifamily rental housing units in 2022 was $1,800, affordable only to people earning at least $72,000. This is based on the standard used by the federal government that housing costs should be 30% or less of someone's income to be deemed affordable. Most of us, I say a great majority of us, are paying more than 30% of our income for housing. This is all happening as the United States is experiencing a construction boom. According to the report, 547,000 new units of multifamily rental housing began construction last year, the most since the 1980s. In March of 2023, 960,000 were under construction, the highest in 50 years. So we have a massive stock of housing, but nobody can really afford it. You know what this is like? This is like having a crowd of starving, hungry, poor people sitting outside of a fine dining restaurant where you have a huge amount of tables full of good food, but there's only a couple of rich people in the restaurant eating, and you're behind the glass watching them eat, and there's nothing you can do about it. That's what it's like. And then people will sit there and go, well, you just need to work harder. The thing is that we're working hard enough as it is. The thing is that the housing is kept away from us. And so what do you want us to do? I know what I would want to do. I would want to smash that glass and come through into that restaurant and take that food. It's going to get to that point. That's what it's like. And this is just for rental units. We're not talking about houses. It says the share of cost-burdened households, meaning more than 30% of their income spent on housing, increased across the country by 1.2 million between 2019 and 2021 to a record of 21.6 million. And 11.6 million households are severely cost-burdened, meaning that more than 50% of the income is spent on housing. There's still a housing shortage. I disagree with that. A housing shortage of roughly 6.5 million homes, the result of a slowdown in housing production after the 2008 mortgage price crisis and the deterioration of homes in the last decade. Meanwhile, a lot of people don't talk about this, but there's 16 million vacant homes in the country. 16 million. And let's just say hypothetically, half those vacant homes need to be renovated for occupancy, right? Let's just say even still 8 million homes that are qualified for occupancy, and yet we have under 600,000 people that are homeless. Sounds more like a hoarding issue than a housing issue. Says overproduction on the high end can lead to disproportionately high vacancies at the top of the market, as institutional landlords can prefer prolonged vacancy to lowering rents when no one wants to pay their asking price. New York City, for instance, has long had a glut of empty luxury apartments. They keep them empty on purpose so that they can get more money for those units. And this talks about landlords. It says, compare this to the profit of landlords calculated as net operating income, NOI, or what property owners have left over after paying taxes, maintenance, and other costs. Net operating income grew 8.1% in the first quarter of 2023, and this was actually a stark decrease in growth from the 24.8% NOI growth in the second quarter of 2021, according to the report analysis of NCRIEF Property Index. So landlords are making hand over fist. Why are landlords bad? Why? And some people will say, well, the mom and pop landlords, here's the thing. Mom and pop landlords, and somebody made a great point. Here's my problem. The thing is that we shouldn't have a system where somebody has to depend on withholding housing from other people in order to make money so that they can survive. If those mom and pop landlords had their housing, their food, and their education and everything guaranteed, they would not need to rent out housing in the first place. Number one. Number two, for you to own another home and then having to charge somebody for rent, you are forcing that family to pay your mortgage for you. But who gets to keep the property as well as the wealth and the equity in that home? It's not the renters. It is the homeowner. Meaning that they are paying for your wealth. You're scalping people. You're no better than a ticket scalper. This is why landlords is a unnecessary, antiquated, and predatory practice that our country needs to get rid of. Mao was right. And you got people talking about, oh my God, landlords provide housing. They don't provide housing. They don't. That's like saying that insurance companies provide healthcare. No, they don't. Doctors, nurses, techs, they provide healthcare. Insurance companies don't provide healthcare. It's like saying, oh, landlords provide healthcare. All right, then did the landlord build the home with their own two hands? No. The construction company was the one that did it. The people who actually laid the foundation, that built the walls, that put in the drywall, that put in the plumbing, that put in the electrical, they are the ones that actually provided the housing. The workers. Get the fuck out of here. Goodness gracious. And so it's growing. Right? Housing is becoming more and more difficult as time moves on. This says the U.S. doubled down on its housing problems during the pandemic. Even as constructions of single-family homes booms, a new report paints a troubling portrait of racial and generational gaps in home buying and a severe lack of housing where it is needed most. It says it might sound surprising with sky-high home prices, lumber shortages, and bidding battles at seemingly every corner of the country, but the U.S. has been on a bit of home building tear. Single-family homes started toppling the million mark last year, the first time that's happened since 2007. And apartment construction is approaching levels last seen in the 80s, says Christopher Bruin, director of the research for the National Multifamily Housing Council. Despite the pandemic, just over 389,000 apartment units began construction in 2020, one of the best years since 1990. And at current rates, builders will start 446,000 units before 2021 is over. So like we said, it is happening. They're building a lot, but can anybody afford it? No. No. We can't afford it. Let's look at this. And when people say, oh, you guys should just need to work hard, blah, 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 I want you guys to share with them this.
I'm a millennial is trying to explain this to a boomer, they always use the same example. They go, well, my interest rates were 15%. You have 6.5%. You're so lucky. Well, let's look at it this way. If you bought a house for $80,000 back in the 80s, a 20% down payment would be 16 grand. And the average person was making around $30,000 back then. So your down payment was just half your yearly salary. And then the loan you would have on it would be about 60,000. So in order to pay off the 60,000, if you really wanted to, it's just 2 years of your salary and you could have your house paid off. Well, let's fast forward to 2023, and I live in Orlando, so I'll use this as an example. A $400,000 house with 20% down would cost $80,000 just as the down payment. The average person makes $50,000. So it's almost twice their yearly salary just for the down payment. Then they've got a $320,000 loan left that they have to look at. That's nearly 7 times their salary to pay off the loan, regardless. And then you go, well, 15%, we had a higher payment. All the people buying houses right now, I'm a real estate agent here, so I see this all the time. It is incredibly rare that people are putting 20% down. People are putting 3 to 5% down, which is, with a 6% interest rate, is still shooting the mortgage through the roof. People's payments on these homes are $3,300, $3,500 a month on an average, simple 3-bed, 2-bath home. So that's the difference. Millennials are complaining and people can't get mortgages. I don't know the answer to it, but I'm in this stuff every single day. And most of our clients, I'm not kidding you, are in their 50s, 60s, and 70s. It is so rare for us to see a millennial or especially anyone younger, except a couple the other day. And the agent pulled me aside and said, hey, they got to send this video to their parents because they're the ones paying for it. Good for them. That's awesome. But that's the situation that millennials are in.
Like I said, millennials, we're approaching 40. I'll be 40 next year. I'll be 40 next year. Can we afford homes? No, we can't. Meanwhile, in places like China, they got an 85 to 90% home ownership rate in China. Here, we're lucky if we reach 65%. And that's mostly among Gen X and boomers. And the millennials that can get a home are getting a home because mommy and daddy's helping pay for it. Now, of course, this is a Black channel, a Black network. So let's take a look at this too. Let me see this down. Okay. Gosh, this takes so long to load. I should have preloaded this before I went live, but it's whatever. Please do not start playing before I get to this. Okay. Nope. Okay. Pause. Pause. Oh, dear God. Why aren't you? Oh, my God. Oh, gosh. I know, page unresponsive. Thank you so much. Sorry, guys. Everything's going a little on the slow side. Okay. Okay. All right. So let me share this really quick. I think this is oh, nope, that's not what I wanted. This one. Okay. So let's go.
So the National Association of Realtors just released some data from last year. Turns out about 88% of home buyers last year were they look like me. They were white. Do you care to guess how many melanated human beings in America? What percentage bought houses in 2022?
It was 3%. 3%. That's how many.
I don't have an easy, quick little quote that I could zing out there to solve the world's problems, but the disparity is stark, and you have to be blind not to see it. When we talk about the difference in wealth inequality in American households, even not just a black and white divide, but the disparity in homeowners and renters and household wealth. There's a lot to unpack about whether or not buying a house is a smart move for everybody, and I actually don't think it is. But I do not think you can argue that it has been a powerful tool to lift a certain segment of the population up financially, and to see the disparity in people who are able to grab that thing, to pull that lever, is pretty stark.
So just to let you guys know, even the realtors are speaking out. The realtors are going, yeah, things are not good. 3% of home buyers last year were black. 3%. 3%. So not only are millennials not doing okay, black millennials are not doing okay. We're not okay, people. It's not good. And then some people will look at us and go, Well, you guys just need to pull yourselves up by your bootstraps. And then I go, well, maybe, just maybe, if we actually just did, made housing a human right, then we wouldn't have to worry about this. But unfortunately, because it's not, then we have to worry about always being homeless or being this close to homeless. It's funny because we're 13% of the population, but we're 40% of the homeless population. Something tells me that maybe, just maybe, racism still exists. I also want to show this too.
Hey, brother Brad. I'm not picking on you. I thought it was a good comment. This type of comment came up a couple times. The video that I'm originally linked to here, if anybody's just finding this, that thing blew up. That's wowing out.
So this person comment said melanated people only make up 13% of the population. So, and let's hear his response.
Cannot, I'm sorry, respond to every individual person. I wish I could. I said what I said. Happy to talk to anybody, but I can't take on that. But I would like to address. When I clicked on your face, I see that you identify as a libertarian. So I would like to posit a question for you as a man that loves the free market. Here's all I'm trying to say here. I'm trying to stay in my lane, touching some hot issues. All I'm trying to say is, I asked the question rather, do you think that 3% would have been higher if Black Americans had been given the land that they were promised originally? That's a lot of compounding equity, at this point. And if not, do you think that 3% number in 2022 might have been higher if the Black Americans that were able to get a hold of land during their lifetime had not been run off by domestic terrorism in America during a great migration, as they literally fled north, and that land was reabsorbed back into the white population and they were allowed to build equity off of it? Do you think that 3% number might be higher if, as someone that loves a free market, when they got to these, safety cities, that they had been allowed to purchase the homes that they wanted to buy and in neighborhoods that they wanted to live in, and had not been relocated and steered into specific neighborhoods? Do you think that 3% number might be a little bit higher if their grandparents had not had their home systematically devalued through very legal means of valuation and market models? Do you think that 3% number might have been high? I could go on and on. All right. And as somebody that loves a free market, you should be equally upset and appalled by that. My only point here is somebody that sells real estate and works in this market, is all I can do is speak truth to power. I, like everybody else here, am operating within a system that I did not design. I did not pick out. Every sane person understands that. So what are we to do? I've been performing a thought experiment for a very long time on what somebody could do to make a decent living, or a living at all, that doesn't exploit themselves, somebody else, or something else. It's a challenge. That's the system part. All I'm saying is, it begs the question that, do you think that number might have been higher if millennial home buyers that were Black were able to call on the resources that their parents were able to accumulate? And I think the answer is yes. I think that number would have been higher. That's what I think.
That was from a realtor. And so that's something that I think that a lot of us need to think about. It's not only just the disparity between our generations, but also the racial disparity as far as wealth. And this is something that also needs to be discussed as well. And this is why housing as a human right needs to happen. Now, let's continue, because some great stuff on TikTok. If you guys aren't on TikTok, y'all are missing out. I'm telling you. All right. So let's go here.
None of this makes sense.
Hello, my name is Matt, and I've been helping people make sense of the housing market since everything changed. See, as soon as I felt that shift in June of 22, I've been asking why. Why? Where are we going? What's happening? Who has the money? What's going on? Let's start at the end and work our way back. So institutions are supposed to own 40% of all single-family rental homes by 2030. Go ahead and look it up. That is just under 8 million homes. So the reason I asked those questions is because institutions were giving me 10 to 12 offers on every home over what anybody else would pay. And that's when rates were low. And of course, we all know home values went up, way up. So like he says in his video, it doesn't make sense to anyone because nobody on here feels like they can afford it. However, they can, and they were ready. We do more research and we find out that the big players like Elon Musk are building entire company towns. So the big players enter the chat and they're building company towns for all their employees, not for them to own. They want to own it because they know supply is low. And if they can own these homes, they can profit. And of course, you can't do everything the same. So Bezos had to go ahead and say, I'm not going to do that for my employees. What I'm going to do is say, hey, give me $100, invest with me. I'll go out there and buy and build and fund entire new neighborhoods specifically for rent. Now, we all know that big money, institutions, investors that are trying to profit off houses is a bad thing. But how bad is it? If shareholder value is the major factor driving the housing market, there is no prospect for affordable housing, period. So let's go back to the conclusion, shall we? Institutions to own 40% of single-family rentals by 2030. Who do you think are buying all the houses right now? Who do you think can afford the payments that you can't afford? You know what that means? We're going to be this environment until 2030 where it's just slightly out of reach for you to afford a home. And you're going to complain, and I get it. You have every right to. But this is what they're doing. The writing's on the wall. And they are doing it through you. Just like that arrived homes Jeffrey Bezos has. Give me $100. I'm going to go out there. You can invest. You be the smart one and invest in my company. I'll make it easy for you. Why would they make it easy for you guys? They're telling you it's too expensive to own a home. You should rent, yet you should help them build the rental homes that you're going to live in. Not own the one you're going to live in, own a piece of it. I'll add this to the playlist of housing issues so you can click down here and go see all the other videos I've did, but I've literally been talking about this since then, and I will continue to do so. Step one is understanding, and I hope this helped.
So ultimately, just like with the last segment, with this segment, the problem is corporations and the wealthy. That's the problem. So this is what's been going on. And I think this is deeply important so that we help people out with housing. And, you know, I think that it's important that we get ourselves to a point where we start to do mutual aid for, you know, our fellow citizens, for anybody who may be, you know, going without. You know, and so I think that's what's important. And if you know somebody that is going through housing issues, and if there's any way you can assist them, even if you don't have the money, right? If you can assist them with helping them out with housing, help. Mutual aid could be just helping them out with their application fees, right? Or it could be, are you just able-bodied and you can help them move? You know what I'm saying? There's so many different ways that we can help our neighbors when it comes to these things. until we can actually change the system. And so, when we talk about issues like this, it's really to bring this to your attention. And I would like to say that, there's many different ways for mutual aid. I'm going to bring up, in honor of Ping, I'm going to bring up this mutual aid effort because I see a lot of people talking about Ping. And if you would like to, you guys can actually go to Strive Pensacola. They actually do housing mutual aid for trans people. And so if you would like to, in honor of Ping, in the chat, if you guys would like to, you guys can actually help out and give some mutual aid to trans people that are being kicked out or who are homeless, and especially in the Florida area. Strive Pensacola, one of the representatives has actually been on RBN before, and I absolutely love Indigo. If you're watching, mwah, shout out to you. But also, please make sure if you guys are wanting to give some type of mutual aid, you guys can go to Strive Pensacola. In fact, I'm going to put it inside the chat so you guys can actually donate if you guys would like to, because there's a lot of trans people that are kicked out of their homes constantly, day in and day out. And we just do not want to see our fellow trans workers. We don't want to see them out on the street. So yes, I am going to be sharing that in honor of Ping in the chat. So if you guys would like to, you guys can actually do that as well. So I just wanted to put that in there too. So thank you so very much, because yes, just like whoever says, see, we love our fellow human beings here, all of them. Yep, that's what exactly it's about. So what I'm going to do, and let me first off go to, actually, wait, let me put this also in the chat in Rumble. And then I'm going to go to the chat really quick. Answer Roger, because I know Roger put some other stuff in the chat. I know you got some good stuff to tell me, Roger, because you always do. Okay. So thanks for the tip, Roger. Roger says, bro, you want Alfeca back on? All you had to do was ask. Consider it done. I'll Angela V's number. They finally reintroduced the bill in this new term. Sabrina said my two senators in New York added the release of UFO info to the funding of the Pentagon bill. I said to her, maybe all of us New Yorkers should push Gillibrand and Chuck to attach National Infrastructure Bank, reinstatement of postal banking, and Medicare for all. Obama-Bush bailout gave banks and BlackRock to purchase housing. Oh my gosh. Oh gosh, these people. I'm sick and tired of them, Obama and Bush. Repeated again in 2020. Of course. A little over 2 weeks ago, I sent Sab the 2023 update of the annual Out of Reach project report to put together by a National Low Income Housing Coalition. She did a story on it 2 weeks ago. It tells you what the minimum wage should be per state if 30% of monthly minimum wage income is expected to pay for housing. Peep your DM. Oh, yes, I have that. In fact, wait, did I take it down? No, I still have it up. In fact, let me share that really quick, and then I'll get to your next comment on Rockfin. But yes, thank you for reminding me, because I meant to show this as well. And so when it comes to housing, if you look at this chart, it actually shows where you live, how much it costs to afford a 2-bedroom in your state. The most egregious is California. You need to make $42.25 in your state of California in order to afford a 2-bedroom. In my home state of Florida, it is $30.59, which means you need to make $30.59 an hour in order to afford a 2-bedroom. In the state I was born in, New Jersey, you need to make $33.50. New York, $40.08. So even if you were living in a place like Mississippi, you need to make $17.21. So everybody's suffering. And we no longer need to talk about a $15 minimum wage. I honestly think that we need to start talking about a $60 minimum wage in certain places, or start talking. Actually, no, not even minimum wage. Let's start talking about workers owning their workplaces. Let's just start talking about that, because that's absolutely what we need. And so for you guys to share this with your neighbors, share this with your family, share this with your friends. I'm going to put this in the chat. So yeah, I still got it, Roger. I haven't deleted it. I still got it up. Don't worry, bro. Thank you. I also put this in the chat in the Rumble side. All right. But yes, this is also very important. All right, let's go back to the chat. All right. So Roger continues. He says, and don't forget, pay special close attention to the highlight area of each of those screenshots in the lower right-hand corner of each state. They suggest what minimum wage should be for those particular areas. Next one, he says, a public bank acting as the replacement insurer for FDIC can partner with local Black-owned community banks and credit unions who are less likely to practice racial discrimination in banking services when it comes to building wealth through home ownership and starting Black-owned businesses, preferably Black worker co-ops. Ooh, oh gosh, don't let me see a Black worker co-op. Make me go crazy. He continues, says the National Infrastructure Bank tackles the homeless crisis as well as for housing for low incomers. Roger says, if you can put this in the chat, I need your viewers to listen to this when your show ends, especially for your New York audience. It speaks on the New York Public Banks Act, also what a public bank can do for your community in terms of surplus housing and other things. Got it, Roger. Ew. Okay, I see you. Okay, put this in. Excuse me. Man, I'm giving out a lot of info today. Let's go. All right, and then Roger says, I took screenshots of the PDF and put it in the DM. Okay. All right. Let's take a look, see here. Okay, so it says most expensive jurisdictions. See, so Santa Cruz, San Francisco, San Jose, Salinas, Santa Maria, Boston, Cambridge, Quincy. So yeah, look, Santa Cruz, Watsonville is 63.3%. I'm sorry, $63.33 an hour. Sorry, I'm in a different part of my head. State non-metropolitan areas sell $46.91 an hour. Nantucket, $50.53 an hour. Oh my gosh. Wow, man. This is ridiculous, man. Hang on, let's go to the next one. Yeah, it talks about, oh, this is it ranked. Let's take a look at this too really quick. Okay, so ranked is California first with $42.25 per hour you need to make to afford a two-bedroom. Hawaii is $41.83. Florida is number 11 gosh. Whew, man. It's ridiculous. At least in Illinois, it's $24.59. This is actually cheaper to live in Illinois. Well, unless you're in the Chicago area. I assume Chicago is going to be even higher because that's a major city. I want to see Florida because that's where I live. Just do for the sake of time. It says in Florida, fair market rent for a 2-bedroom apartment is $1,591. In order to afford this level of rent and utilities without paying more than 30% of income on housing, a household must earn $5,302 monthly or $63,622 annually. Assuming a 30-hour work week, assuming a 40-hour work week, 52 weeks per year, this level of income translates into an hourly housing wage of $30.59 per hour. The most expensive areas is Monroe County, Miami Beach, Kendall, you see West Palm Beach, Fort Lauderdale, and Naples. So these are some of the most expensive areas. So this is in Florida. And there's also a point that I would like to share. And this is something that I saw that I was just like, man, even right-wingers are like, what in the hell is going on? We got right-wingers going off. And they're like, this is unsustainable. Let me show this. Wait, I had it. Oh, you know what? I probably... No, I want to share that. I want to share. Oh, my goodness. Lord Almighty. Ah, here it is. Because this was a really good response. All right. So this was a response by Roger. He says private equity like BlackRock were given authority to buy up all these homes and apartments, driving up housing costs with rent speculation where they see a lot of people moving to New York, Florida. You can actually do something about it, run a ballot initiative outlawing private equity from owning houses. And this is from Laura Loomer. Laura Loomer is a right-winger. It says, it's not worth it right now. Living in Florida is a major money pit. It is very unaffordable under DeSantis. When he told everyone to move to Florida, he ruined the quality of living for everyday middle-class Floridians who have now been hit with a 22% increase in their utility bills and property insurance rates that are more than 5 times the national average. The cost of everything has gone up and made life for people who have already been living in Florida very hard. We also have the highest inflation rate in the country. Even if you work hard, you will still struggle living in an affordable lifestyle if you live in Florida. I feel bad for Florida families. I am an unmarried woman, and I feel these insane increases in my pocket. You don't have much disposable income in Florida. I can only imagine how families feel. And this is basically what happened. This is an article that Roger shares. Says GOP mega donor celebrates his profits from huge increases in rents as millions face eviction. The Daily Poster comment. Okay. So, yeah. So this is what's going on in Florida. And a lot of people aren't talking about it. Or if people are talking about it, they're afraid, to speak out against the corporations. Jamon says, look up People's Food Co-op by Baba Maliki, Jaybe. Oh, okay. I'll look that up. Oh. Oh. What? People's Food Co-op? What? Oh, oh, I'll get to that in a second. Okay, thank you, Jamon. Beautiful people in this chat. So, what was I gonna say? Did I have one more thing? I think that was it. So yeah, I got all that from Roger. Let's go to the chat really quick. Creative Experiment says you're not to kick out capitalists, they're kicking themselves out. Yeah, they're hanging themselves with the rope that they sold us with. Seth says, I don't have any money or I pay for a post. Anyways, almost done reading the book you recommended, The Dawn of Everything. I didn't recommend the book. Maybe somebody else recommended the book, but says, can you have an episode where you talk about it? I've never read The Dawn of Everything. So I would have to get it, but my apologies. May have submitted somebody else. But thanks. The Traveler's Wolf says, imagine if the Democratic Party with a yellow stain. If we could use the color purple, we could fix them. Old School Bird says, property insurance, HOA fees, and property taxes are making it tough in Florida too. That's true. That's true. All right. Okay. So one of the things I'm going to also talk about, well, not necessarily talk about, but I'm going to say this one thing before I do my last things for this stream. But first of all, Ping says, what about butchering of children's genitals by the trans industry? First of all, there is no trans industry. Second of all, if you're concerned about butchering genitals, then I think you want to talk to the heterosexuals about how they chopped off the tips of every baby boy's penis when they did circumcisions. Are you against circumcision? Because guess what? If you consider that mutilated, then I was mutilated. A lot of other boys were mutilated, but yet I don't see you saying anything about that in the first place, right? Number two, as far as trans surgeries goes for children, there is no surgery for children, especially when it comes to genital surgery, gender affirmation surgeries. Those surgeries are for when you're over the age of 18. The only thing that goes under 18 is typically top surgery, and that's for 16-year-olds and older. So maybe, just maybe, if you actually did your research, then you would know this. But instead, you're fear-mongering and dividing the working class in our comments. This is the first and last time I'm actually going to address you, because you are literally dividing the workers in order to maintain this capitalist structure, which is making all of us sick, which is making all of us poor, which is killing all of us. So you are actually actually an enemy of the working class by spreading this. You're no different than somebody that spreads racist rhetoric or spreads sexist and misogynistic rhetoric that divides the working class any further, Ping. And so while you're saying these types of things, you're actually wrong on these things. You're talking about trans industry when in reality, there is no trans industry. But I can tell you this, there's an industry out there to keep all of us impoverished. There's an industry that puts people like me in prison and works in poverty and slavery. That's the industries that you need to be talking about. But you don't want to talk about that. You want to divide the working class because I honestly think that you're an op and you're just trying to divide us. So the thing is that when you talk about things like this, you're just a division artist, and that's what you are. And so you don't deserve to even have a space to talk, to the people in the comments like this because you're absolutely wrong on this. But yet, that's who you are. And so the thing is that I don't have tolerance for people who want to divide the working class. Because guess what? Trans people are also our fellow workers. They're also part of the proletariat. And they just want to live a decent life. And so, yeah. So if you want to talk about that, look, everybody, if you have a couple bucks and you want to help some people out, go to strivepensacola.com. Help out some people who may, have housing issues. Because guess what? There's a lot of kids, especially a huge amount of kids that are LGBTQ, that are also homeless out there that have been kicked out of their homes. If you guys would like to do that as well, you guys can do that. And if you guys want to do it in Ping's name, go ahead and do it in Ping's name. Because guess what? They're not going to stick out for the working class, but I know you will. And so what else do I have? I'm going to end the stream on a very happy note because even though we talk about a lot of these problems, I brought up, a couple solutions that we can also bring up, but I also want to talk about, I also want to bring up something funny because I think it is hilarious. Let me see. Yeah. So I hope I can pause it. I hope I can. I might have to refresh. Okay, I'll just refresh it when I get in here. But you guys are going to laugh. But before I go, yeah, and some people wanted to get their boobs reduced and some people wanted to have boobs, and yet I don't see you saying shit about them. In fact, let me do this right now. Yeah. Tired of your ass. Oop. Shit. Anywho, so, and yeah, if somebody got a problem with me, they can come to me about it. But this person is constantly spamming the comments. But I'm going to say, if you guys would like to, you guys can go to revolutionaryblackout.substack.com so that you guys can also, subscribe to our, Substack so you guys get email notifications. Be sure to do that as well. Also, if you guys would like to, we do the fundraising for our graphics designer, Erin. She does an amazing job. You guys can go to @revolutionaryblackout or Cash App $mutual aid forever. Thank you so very much to Erin for all the work that she does. She will be making clips for this stream as well. Also, in regards to the Orlando chapter, I got your guys' responses. I will be answering them as well. But I've been sick, so I haven't been as on top of things as I should be, but I'll be getting to that as well. And then, so glad that I remember this. Today is somebody's birthday. Who is it? I'm going to share. Let me see. Hold on. Let me share the tweet, because this is what's up. So happy birthday to Miss Asada Shakur. Can't wait for the day you can return home to your country as a hero. Yes, Miss Asada Shakur, today is her birthday. She was a part of the Black Liberation Army, a fellow commie, and someone who actually is fighting for the working class. And so thank you so much to Mr. Shada Shakur for all your contributions. You are a hero. And of course, later today, I will be doing a special stream. I'm going to read her book live, and that's what I'll be doing, because Mr. Shada Shakur she's a champion of working people. She's a champion for the rights of Black people as well. Thank you so very much. Happy birthday to Mr. Sada Shakur. What a woman. What a woman. And besides that, what I'm going to do is I am going to share. Oh, by the way, if you guys would like to, you guys can subscribe to our Patreon. Please make sure to go to our Patreon. Thank you to all the people who are also members. Thank you so much to the members for your contributions to us as well. And if you guys would like to, you guys can also donate to our GoFundMe. I know Rome is still helping build the library. CJ still needs some assistance with housing as well. And then if you guys would like to donate to my GoFundMe or any of the platforms where I have for contributions to me, you guys can also go to my channel, and I have those in any one of my videos. You guys can get those as well. Because, yeah, I'm going through housing issues too, but not as serious as somebody like CJ. So let's go here, and we're going to have a good time. And let's have some fun. So let's hold on. Let me. Okay.
As a problem.
Keeps doing it.
I know that booty gonna do what it want to. Can't hit it one time, multiple. I know you see these racks on me. Now come and get high. 20, 40, 80 out the trap. Hit it with the rap. Put it on the map, then we right back. Comment when you want to get high. Tony Montana with the racks. IVP on my bag. Double G's on my dash. I'm bad. Tell me when you want to get high, because you can't get no higher than this. No. Love don't get no higher than this. America has a problem. I know that booty gonna do what it want to. Can't hit it one time, multiple. I know you see these racks on me. Now come and get
oh my God, I cannot.
20, 40, 80 out the trap. Hit it with the rap. Put it on the map, then we right back.
Gosh. Oh gosh, that was hilarious. I just wanted you guys to have some joy. I want you guys to laugh. I want you guys to just enjoy your Sunday, because guess what, baby? It's been stressful. Like, we got trolls in the comments, we got, telecommunications companies, poisoning us. We got housing that, we can't afford, even though it's plentiful. Look, we got to laugh, and joy is revolutionary, baby. That's what we need. And so that's one of the reasons why I wanted to play it, because I wanted to lift everybody's spirits by the end of this, because these things can be depressing, right? But in reality, all we need to do is come together in solidarity, and then we can actually move this nation. The thing is, this is why we bring up stories like this, so that we can inform people, but also so we can have more hope. And that's what's going to push us forward, is by acting on that hope. That's what we're going to do. And so I appreciate all of you for tuning in, and whoever. There's nothing better than a well-informed gluteus maximus. Yes. Let me stop. I'm going to get going, because I got to eat, and then I got to read. I got to do my reading a little bit later. I got a meeting later. So, yeah. But, yeah, so everybody take care. Have a beautiful day. Water your plants. Water yourselves. Leave the world better than you found them. Look, smoke them if you got them. Drink them if you got them. If you don't got them, then laugh. Watch something funny, because joy is revolutionary. Also, make sure if you see anything that's made out of lead, like especially like a cable, stay away from it. Get yourself tested if you can. Also, if you are looking for a home, or if you know somebody that's looking for a home, try to do some type of mutual aid to help them out if you can. And if you're in need of help, please do not be ashamed, and do not be silent. Reach out and let somebody know that you need help, because your community will look out for you. And yeah, so forehead kisses to every single one of you. And I'll catch you on the flip side. It's a beautiful day for the neighborhood, a beautiful day for a neighbor. Would you be mine? Could you be mine? Music!